Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. It is Wednesday. We're here with Wednesdays with Will, but it is actually Tuesday night because I totally realized I forgot to wrap up Much Ado About Nothing for this month. So I've kind of like had a day and my son's doing dishes, but we're going to get this done. So Much Ado About Nothing. If you don't know what the Bard Room is, this is the project that I'm doing with some people where we're kind of reading through all of Shakespeare's plays in random order. We do 9 a year. We take May and December off, and then in April, so next month we're going, well, no, it's almost next month. It's like the end of February. So in April, we're going to do one of the narrative plays, and I will announce that on the second Wednesday in March. The second Wednesday in March is when I usually do my poll. I'm sorry, lots of noise. And look, I'm choosing from 2, so whatever. But our February book was Much Ado About Nothing. This is one of Shakespeare's comedies, of course. And a lot of people are familiar with it. I had seen the Kenneth Branagh movie, but I had never read this before. And it's been a long time since I've seen the Kenneth Branagh movie. And as I talk about this, I'm going to tell you that movie stuck with me big time. Anyway, we have 2 sort of plot lines going here. Basically, it starts with we're at the home of a local, what is he? Let me look up here. What his role is. He's a governor, Leonardo. He's the governor of Messina. And he lives there with his daughter, Hero, and his niece, Beatrice. And these soldiers have won, and they're coming back through, and they stay with Leonardo. Among these soldiers is a young man named Claudio. This is a plot. This is actually probably the lesser known of the 2 plots, but it's easier to explain if I do this one first. Count Claudio, he's a young lord from Florence. He's got the hots for Hero and he wants to marry Hero. And then his commander, Don Pedro, has a brother who doesn't like him, named, is it really Don? Yes, Don John. So Don John cooks up this plan to like upset Don Pedro by making Claudio think that Hero's a busy girl, if you know what I mean. And Claudio, I just want to say right now, I hate Claudio. Like I hate that character. Hate him. I didn't hate him as much as he was Robert Sean Leonard, but I really hate him here. He totally falls for this and decides, instead of like talking to Hero like a grown-up would, he's going to wait till their wedding day and then publicly dump her. So there's that going on. And then we also have probably the more famous storyline from here, which is Benedict and Beatrice. Benedict is a soldier with Don Pedro and Beatrice is Leonardo's niece. Now these 2 have had some sort of history. It's never elaborated on, but it is referred to in the text that something happened in the past. And now they hate each other and they are battling a war of wit against each other. So they both are very sharp-tongued and they do not hold back when it comes to each other. So Don Pedro and his crew and Hero and her crew, they decide they're going to play a trick and they're going to gossip where Benedict and Beatrice can hear them and convince the other that they're in love with each other and see if they get them together. And that's what happens. Oh, and as for Hero, she is, Claudio does his really classy act of like dumping her at the altar and then she faints. And then the friar, never trust the friars in Shakespeare. They tend not to have good ideas. But anyway, the friar says, why don't you die in the most Shakespearean way ever, which is to drop dead. We'll tell him that you just dropped dead. I know, more people in Shakespeare die in battle, but enough people just sort of spontaneously drop dead in Shakespeare that, there you go. So they decide to do that. Hero pretends to be dead and they go tell Claudio. So this is the whole thing with Claudio. Claudio is not upset about any of this. He's just not, he's like, well, Hero's a SLUT and blah, blah, blah. And he's not at all upset that this woman he was going to marry, he's not marrying. And these horrible things are being said about her, which he believed just like without any question, he believed. And when she's dead, he's like, oh no, Hero is dead. Oh, that's too bad. And Leonardo gets this great idea. It's like, ooh, you know what? My brother has a daughter who's just like Hero. Why didn't you marry her instead? And Claudio's like, okay. And there is a scene where Claudio goes to the tomb and says, hey, hero, I'm sorry. That was too bad, but I'm going to marry this other person now. But then, of course, they have the wedding and the bride is veiled, but then they pull out the veil and it's Hero and everyone lives happily ever after. I hate Claudio. He is a jerk. But there you go. Benedict and Beatrice are delightful. But the truth is there's just not much to their story. It's fun banter, but there's just no story there. It's very fluffy. And even Hero and Claudio's story is it's not much. I mean, I kind of feel like this was kind of like this video. Shakespeare had a deadline and had to write something really quick. As I said, like this video. But this is not a deep play. It isn't. It just isn't. It's delightful. If you like funny banter, you'll like it. But you'll probably hate Claudio because he's a jerk. So yeah, that's my take on Much Ado About Nothing. I have not watched an adaptation since reading this. I just haven't had time. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go back and rewatch the Kenneth Branagh movie. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. As I said, it's been decades since I've seen the Kenneth Branagh movie, but that has stuck in my head. It's there. There is a song in here. Sigh no more, ladies, sigh no more. And as usual, I listen to this as I read it, and the audio, I was doing the Archangel production. It's a different melody than the movie, which is a Patrick Doyle song. I think even it's Patrick Doyle who comes and performs it in the movie, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, I was so thrown off by it not being the song from the movie. Like, I had to stop it and mentally prepare myself. So this is, and I will admit, when I read this, it was Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. I know that's kind of not appropriate these days. Well, since Frankenstein, it hasn't been really appropriate, but that's what I saw in my mind. So that movie has really stuck with me. That is definitely a recommendation for the movie. I have friends who love that movie so much that when they got married, and this was before I knew them, but when they got married, the theme of their movie was that, the theme of their wedding was that movie. But anyway, so that is a great production to see. There is a production, an adaptation Joss Whedon did, which I have heard is good, but I haven't seen. I was thinking of getting an RSC production and just seeing what's going on. There is currently a production in London, which, oh God, I hope they film. I need to see it, with Tom Hiddleston and Haley Atwell as Benedict and Beatrice. Please record this. I just need to see it, and I'm not going to get to London anytime soon. Please. But anyway, that's Much Ado About Nothing. Now my rankings. Again, if you haven't seen this before, and this is not the best wrap-up video to start with because, as you can see, I'm just trying to get it done. Deadline, sorry. What I do with these is I rate these plays on a system that I sort of adapted from the All About Agatha podcast, where they read all of Agatha Christie's novels and then they rate them. So I use that idea, which is I have several categories that I rate from 5 to 1, 5 being good, 1 being bad. And I get a subtotal. And then I have one final one, which is of its time, something that either didn't age well, it's kind of offensive now, or it could be the humor, the humor is not funny anymore. It's 16th, 15th, 17th century humor that we just don't even recognize anymore. But I give that a rating 2, and I deduct that from the subtotal, get a number, and then rank them. So let me go through my ratings. And I swear, I did not have boatloads of caffeine for dinner. I need to get this video done. So rating, the first one is what I just rated it. How many stars? I gave this 4 stars. Even though it is totally fluffy, there's really nothing to it. It's fun. Well, and it has Claudio. Claudio's horrible. If you want someone to hate, Claudio is, I swear to God, the Rochester of this. He is. Okay, and the next category is reputation. So this is, how well is this play known to just the general public? Now, there's only a handful of plays that will get a 5 here. Hamlet, Macbeth, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Is that it? I think those are the only 3 that would get a 5. But I did give this a 4 mostly because of the Kenneth Branagh movie, because I don't know anyone who hasn't seen that movie, like just in my life. And it's very accessible. It has, it's not just Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. It has Kate Beckinsale as Hero, Denzel Washington is Don Pedro, Claudio is Robert Sean Leonard, Don John is Keanu Reeves. And there's this like weird comedic part, which is kind of silly. And that is Dogberry. He's like what is he? He's the constable. He's just a comic character. That's, what's his name? Michael Keaton. So, I mean, big names in this movie. And so I think a lot of the 4 stars for that came from this movie, but hey, props to Kenneth Branagh. You're kind of a jerk sometimes, but you did a good movie there. And stickiness. I gave this a 3.5 because while I totally remember Benedict and Beatrice, I totally forgot what a jerk Claudio was and the whole Hero Claudio plot. It just, no, it just wasn't, it didn't stick with me. And I didn't really appreciate being reminded of it, but there you go. So, I mean, if it's kind of like, I would give it a 3 or 2 or 3 for Hero and Claudio and a 5 for Benedict and Beatrice. So that's why I gave it what did I give it? A 3.5. Characters. Same sort of idea. Probably would have given it a 4. I gave it a 3 because of Claudio. And also the whole Don Pedro one was just, he was such a mustache twirler villain. Not Don Pedro, Don John. He was such a mustache twirler that I was like, Shakespeare, I mean, this is the guy who gave us Iago. And then he gives us this? I don't know. And then Dogberry was just also, I just kind of felt like, I mean, I have seen, there have been other comic characters we've seen that play a sort of the same kind of role that Dogberry does, and Dogberry just doesn't seem up to the same quality. On the other hand, you have Benedict and Beatrice. So I kind of compromised all that and gave it a 3.5. Poetry. This one was tricky. I opted to give it a 3 because this book is, very little of this play is written in verse. It's not really meant to be a poetic play. You can't do the poetry and have the Benedict and Beatrice banter. You can't. And I know poetry is how pretty is the language, but to me, I don't remember prettiness other than Sigh No More Ladies. I don't remember prettiness. I remember insults, which is great. I'm all for insults. Don't get me wrong. But this is not that kind of play. So I ended up giving it a 3, but it's kind of a 3 with, due respect. It just isn't a poetic sort of play. And then would I see this? 5 is I will travel to see this. 1 is you couldn't pay me to see this. I gave this a 4, but I'm not gonna lie. If I had tickets to London and to see that production with Tom Hiddleston and Haley Atwell, I'd be on the next plane. I would. I really want to see that. The little bits that I've seen of it look fantastic. It looks like so much fun. And you need to have a strong Benedict and a strong Beatrice, and those are both strong actors. So I gave it a 4 because of that. Probably 3, like, I would not, for example, I believe this season, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival is doing Much Ado About Nothing. I think either they did it last year or they're going to do it this year. That's not enough to get me down there. I mean, to get me down, not that I've ever made it. It's so sad that I've never been to this, but that's a whole other thing. I'll get into that in a different video. But I'm not like, oh, I must go see this for that. That would not be this. 12th Night I might, but not this. Or Othello I might, but not this. So yeah, that's my whole thing. It depends, me wanting to see it depends on the casting. Let's put it that way. Anyway, so all that gives me a subtitle of 22 points. And then for Of Its Time, I gave it a 2 because there were a few sort of Agatha Christie moments, shall we say, where there's just some sort of backhanded insults involving calling people a Jew, a little what we would call anti-Semitic. It's not even as bad as what you get in early Agatha Christie, but there was enough that I noticed it, so I gave it a 2. So that brings my total to 20 points, and I will do my ranking. So we have done 12 plays so far. In 12th place, surprising no one, is The Winter's Tale with 9 points. Yeah, I don't need to say anything more about that. 11th place is Love's Labour's Lost with 16 points. And the thing with Love's Labour's Lost is it's not a play, as I said earlier, it's one of those plays that didn't age well because the humor just isn't anything that registers on 21st century humor radars anymore. If you see a good production, you can have actors who bring out the humor in their line delivery or in their physical acting. But the play itself, you're like, why is this funny? I don't know. So that's just really, it just didn't age well. Okay. In 10th place with 17 points, we have last month's play, which was Antony and Cleopatra. I'm actually surprised this was so low. Basically, I had an issue and an observation with Antony and Cleopatra. My observation was that it's a kind of play, if you read it on the page, that leaves a lot of room for actors. So a good production can do, a good cast can do a wonderful production of this. There's room for that. But you're not going to get that full experience on the page. And there's nothing wrong with that because Shakespeare didn't write his plays to be read. He wrote them to be performed. So that's just an observation. My critique of it is I was really disappointed with the character of Cleopatra. Shakespeare can write really great female characters, Beatrice, right? And Cleopatra, I expected great things. I mean, it's Cleopatra. And instead I got this like simpering, I didn't like Cleopatra. So it ended up in 10th place. 9th place with 18 points, we have Cymbeline. Cymbeline is a hot mess. It's a fun hot mess, but it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. It's one of those like, it's one of those train wrecks you just really have to see. I want to see Cymbeline because I just want to see it because, wow, there's a lot in that play. And nothing's bad. It's just weird. So that's where Cymbeline landed at. And then in 8th place, we have with 19 points, The Merry Wives of Windsor. Great play. This was a fan service play. It was also written in a matter of like 2 weeks from what I understand. Queen Elizabeth I really loved the character of Falstaff from like the Wars of the Roses plays, Henry IV, part 1 and 2. And so he wrote a whole play around Falstaff, and it's like a sitcom. It's a Shakespearean sitcom is probably the best way to put it. In a lot of ways, it's like Much Ado About Nothing. It's like, it's funny, but there's just not a lot of meat there. It's just a lot of sex jokes. And I'm all for sex jokes, all for the sex joke, but it just, it's not very meaty. And in 7th place, we have a tie. The first is Coriolanus. This is a difficult play. I think of all the plays we've done so far, Coriolanus is the most difficult. It's very political. I did see a production of this. That's why I kind of forced it last year because I was going to see a production of it. Portland Center Stage did it. It's a really interesting play to read or watch now because of the political nature of it, but it is a more complicated plot. I think that the characters can be hard to perform because of, it's not so much that they're so complex. It's that I think actors have to work really hard to get to the meat of them. So, I liked it. It just, it's a difficult play. And in 7th, the other tie is Much Ado About Nothing. Yeah, I think it beat Merry Wives of Windsor because of Benedict and Beatrice and that dang Kenneth Branagh movie. So there we go. We have a tie in 5th place. We have The Merchant of Venice. And Merchant of Venice is one that really fell victim to the of its time. It is an anti-Semitic play, although I think at the time it was written, it was a very forward-thinking play and a very tolerant, and it kind of asked people to think about what we would now consider as anti-Semitism. But there's so much other stuff in it that's just cultural, that didn't age well, that is anti-Semitic. But that being said, I think it has some great lines. It has some real things to grapple with. Judi Dench hates it, which I don't quite agree with, but whatever. Although she was in it and she played Portia, and I can see that because that's really, it's got some great monologues, and I think it is a good play. It's just, you need to go in with a lot of context. And the other play in 5th place is Henry IV, Part 1, which is the only history we've done so far. I really enjoyed it. And speaking of Tom Hiddleston, in The Hollow Crown, he plays Prince Hal, and that was magnifique. Yeah, I liked it. It's basically a story about, I mean, very simplified, very simplified. It's a story about a guy who needs his son to grow up and quit partying, you know, but there's other stuff going on too, but that's a part of it. And then my top 3, in 3rd place, we have The Tempest. This is my husband's favorite play. It is an excellent play. It's got the sort of magical element that I like. What I didn't really like about it, and this is preference, this is not a criticism, this is a preference, is a lot of the humor was drunk humor. And given the choice, I'd rather have sex jokes. There's sex jokes too, just a lot of drunk humor. In 2nd place, we have my favorite play, which is Twelfth Night. I have a lot of sentimental connections to Twelfth Night, and I just think it's a delightful play, and it just puts a smile on my face. I saw Portland Center Stage did it, and I saw it in December, and it's wonderful. And my number 1 play so far is Othello. That's a meaty play. That is a meaty play, and I'm really interested to see when I get to the likes of Hamlet and Macbeth, how they measure up against Othello's. Now, I've read Hamlet many times in school, and I don't like it. I'm wondering if I'm gonna have a different experience, kind of like my trying to repair my relationship with Jane Austen, a different experience reading it out of school. I've never read Macbeth. I have seen the Denzel Washington, Frances McDormand adaptation, which I liked. But those are the 2 big ones, that and Romeo and Juliet are the big ones, right? And Othello is just sort of kind of right below those, but I love Othello. And so I'm gonna be really interested to see how those kind of pan out. Anyway, if you made it through here, congratulations, because as I said, I have to get this video done so I can get it edited and up and ready to go, because it's the last Wednesday of February. And there. Next month, if you missed all the announcements about it and you'd like to join us, next month's play, I don't have right here. It's over there. Next month's play is another comedy. It's All's Well That Ends Well. I don't know this play, so I am looking forward to it. The only thing I know about it is the little bit that Judi Dench talked about it in her book. So I'm looking forward to All's Well That Ends Well. We do discuss this in my Discord. The link is down below. And there's a thread there called The Bard Room, which is where we talk Shakespeare. And if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. You are not committed to do everything. You can drop in when on the plays that you want to do. That's fine. So anyway, thank you for hanging in with me while I did some little vomited out this video to get it done with. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, especially if you want to be part of the Bard Room, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.